One of the most insane stories that I come across over and over again on this particular channel is the story of squatters absolutely devastating homeowners, property owners, and families by taking over a property, and then all of a sudden, the system is 100% on the squatter, on the criminal side, rather than on the legitimate owner of the home. Now, a lot of people have been highlighting this video where a guy says that this is the way that you can scam a free home in the city of Portland. It went viral on TikTok.
This is how I got a free house in Portland, Oregon, and how you can too. So the first thing I did was find a vacant house that somebody was trying to rent. Next, I looked up how to break into a lockbox without using force. Thanks, YouTube. Next, I forged some documents.
And while that particular video is not something that individual did on his own, he was more parroting how the system in Portland works. Make no mistake about it, the parody was of the Portland government, not of whether or not this is actually possible, because it definitely is. And the story that I want to talk about today that highlights this is a family who actually scraped together the money to buy a $2 million very nice home in the borough of Queens, only to discover that home came with a squatter that basically came in sometime between closing, settled in the household, and they can't get the person out. And all of the institutions of the city of New York, all these tenant rights apparently apply to the criminal squatters, which we've talked about before, even when those criminal squatters are renting out the property as an Airbnb, which is, again, insane. And they're now up against it, having to pay the mortgage while this person destroys their home. Now, I'm going to get into this, but before I do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform.
There shouldn't be a problem, and it becomes a nightmare, a total nightmare.
Buying a dream home turned into a nightmare. You heard him. For this family from Queens. The house came with something the new owners did not bargain for. A squatter.
So first of all, that home is absolutely beautiful. It is labeled in this segment a $2 million home, and as somebody who lives in the city of New York, who understands the different prices of all the different boroughs, for that much space, 100%, I definitely buy into the fact that that's a $2 million home. You should honestly go look at different areas of Queens and see what you get for $1 million, and you will be shocked as people who don't live in the city of New York, how little space you get for that amount of money. But this is definitely a house. This is definitely a dream house. At some point in time in my life, I wish to own a car that can pull up to this house, but not actually own the house because that's out of range for me, even though I make a good living in the city of New York. But yeah, obviously you spend a lot of time, you put a lot of money into it. They borrowed heavily for this. With the interest rates being where they're at right now, I'm sure that their monthly payments are through the roof for this. But then it gets taken over by a squatter, and everything in New York City law favors the criminal in this situation rather than the law-abiding citizen who did everything right and just wanted to realize their dream of home ownership.
This made it look like I had a lease agreement, and I called the utility companies and had the utilities put in my name. I'm not going to pay them, but they don't know that. When the owner showed up, I politely explained that this was my house now, and they need to leave.
More than 4 months after purchasing that home, the family says they still can't go inside, and they've faced roadblock after roadblock trying to get the man who is staying there out.
So just like in that video where the guy was parroting the Portland legal system, this is exactly what happened here in the city of New York. They bought the home, they ended up getting the property, but then they found somebody else living and squatting in said property, and what ultimately ended up happening was that the police had to rule this a civil matter, and the court proceedings are taking forever, and eventually they're likely going to have to pay this person off who stole and destroyed their property because the system is extremely tilted in that person's favor, even though, again, they bought this house just 4 months ago. And by the way, if they actually go through the whole legal process, by the time that this is fully adjudicated, and they would win when that finally happens, chances are we're talking 2 years later. And when you see the people who bought this home and you hear why they bought this home, it's actually unbelievably heartbreaking. So let me just play that for you.
It has just taken over everything.
Susanna and Joseph Landa bought what they thought was their dream retirement home in Douglaston, Queens.
We're looking to hopefully retire and most of all provide for my son, Alex, who has Down syndrome. He has a disability.
The new house is right next door to family members.
I just want to know that I can die tomorrow and He's next to his brother.
They signed the deed back in October.
So yeah, these people worked their whole lives. They got to the point where they could retire, and they decided that they were going to buy a home, not in Florida, by the way, like many elderly people do. They like to take their retirement over there, but stay in New York City, pay those New York City taxes because they wanted to be close to family. And the reason why is because they take care of an adult autistic child that they have, and they wanted to buy a property on the same street as their other son. So if anything happened to them, the transition for that autistic child could be done as quickly as possible. The brother could take on that responsibility, and they would have this large house as an asset in order to sell at that point in time in order to cover the costs of those kids. So this is an elderly couple that decided they were not going to forego the expensive high cost of living of New York City, decided that they wanted to stick close to family, something that I can relate to as somebody who lives in the city of New York and wants to be close to my family, as somebody who is about to marry somebody who has a sibling that is an adult with autism that can't take care of herself. And instead, they're going to treat this person who's continually going to be a New York City taxpayer like garbage and back up the criminal that is stealing that dream, that is making them regret that choice, rather than the people who contributed so much to this city and just want to be close to family.
And then what happens?
The nightmare begins.
The house came with something unexpected. A man living in their home, who they say refuses to leave.
We couldn't believe it. We could not believe it.
His name's Brett Flores.
They cannot come here early when I'm not here. They have keys. They're the owner.
This is what happened when the Landos tried to enter with an insurance inspector. They say Flores called the cops on them, even though they say they gave him 10-day notice.
He wasn't a renter.
Never.
You didn't sign documents that said, we have a tenant.
Correct.
And look at this guy. Look at this person who's squatting in this home. Does he look like a non-able-bodied adult? Does he look like somebody who's in desperate need? Or does he look like the very person being parodied in that Portland video who's just gaming the system? He even has the BS paperwork in his hands right there, and he had the audacity to call the police on the people who actually own the home.
So they call the police, and I show them my lease agreement and the utility bills, and they tell the owner that this is a civil matter, and they've got to sue me.
They have keys. They're the owner.
This is what happened when the Landos tried to enter with an insurance inspector. They say Flores called the cops on them, even though they say they gave him 10-day notice.
And of course, in the crazy system that we have in the city of New York, the police came to tell the people who own the home that they can't do anything about it. That actually they're the ones in violation because he decided that he was going to steal this home from them. And guess what? In the city of New York, the law is on this guy's side. And what's crazy about this is, again, just like in that Portland situation, he can go to one of these rental advocacy groups and get a free attorney.
This made the owner super angry, so she lawyers up and tries to evict me. Of course, I can't afford a lawyer, so I call up a tenant advocacy group who gives me a lawyer that's 100% free and funded by taxpayers. So my out-of-pocket is still $0.
While they spend thousands upon thousands of dollars in order to get this guy removed, because this guy, totally able-bodied, should be able to get his own job and get his own damn place, decided that the rules don't apply to him, decided that he was going to game the system, and decided that his wants and whims matter more than the needs of this elderly couple and their autistic child that they are raising into adulthood. Absolute scumbaggery. Look at his face. Look at who this person is, know what he's doing, make him famous, name and shame him, and honestly, I might even at some point in time drive out to this property to get my own original reporting related to this, because that's how pissed off I am about this situation. And you know what? I'm dead serious about this. In fact, if anybody out there in the audience, because you guys have actually done this for me before, knows how to reach out to this elderly couple, to anyone in the family, make sure they email me at my official email address, SeanFitzgerald@actualjusticewarrior.com. That is Sean Fitzgerald at actualjusticewarrior.com. It is on screen, and if there's anything that we can do other than shame this individual beyond all end, let me know what your ideas are down in the comments, because we definitely have to do something about this. Also, throughout the course of recording this video, I say that their son has autism. He actually has Down syndrome, so my apologies for getting that wrong. My own situation connects with autism, so that was the personal confusion.
Correct.
Court documents detail in Flores' own words why he's there. A signed statement says he was hired by the former homeowner as his caretaker, was paid $3,000 a week, and his employment ended in January of last year when the man died. He claims he has a license to stay in the house from the previous owner.
So there's a reason why I use that Portland parody video as a framing device for this, because it actually works. 100% this guy is doing the exact thing to a T, including having this documentation right here, claiming that he was a caretaker of the elderly person. And of course, they signed the paperwork that this house was going to be turned over to this particular family in October of last year, but somehow his contract for employment gives him a right to stay there in perpetuity because he's the caretaker. And, you know, when you work for somebody in a house and that person dies, you get the house. Obviously, isn't that how the law works? Insanely, that's how it works in the city of New York. And I can imagine him getting this person on his deathbed if he was actually the caretaker, which, by the way, I don't believe. I have no evidence that that is in fact true. To get him to say, oh, when he's like demented or whatever, that he had the right to stay there. And of course, this ends up granting this person squatters' rights, which in the city of New York kick in after just 30 days.
What a lot of people don't realize is in New York, squatters have rights after 30 days.
30 days. How can you have rights if you have no lease, you're not paying rent? So what is your right?
Not only has Flores been living there, they claim he listed the home online to rent rooms to other people. The only way to try and get him out? They're taking him to landlord-tenant court, trying to get him evicted.
So first of all, I just want to point out that Flores is wearing a mask, you know, because God forbid he could spread COVID to people. He doesn't want to get anybody sick. What a great guy and all that. But more importantly, more impressively, is that this guy, just like that previous story that we covered, which was also in Queens, New York, I believe, is trying to sublet the extra rooms in this place, which, by the way, creates an even bigger nightmare because then you had more tenants claiming squatters' rights so he could profit off of this further. Because again, him allegedly working for the previous homeowner and that person dying now gives him the rights to become a landlord with this property that he's squatting in, because that's how absurd and insane our legal system actually is.
So this lawyer fights on my behalf for months and months, really driving the owner crazy and costing her tens of thousands of dollars.
We have had already 5 hearings at civil court.
He shows up, no attorney.
If it's not one excuse, it's another excuse.
He filed the bankruptcy. So that prevents everything from going forward.
Again, I'm going to show this guy's face as many times as possible so that it is seared into your brain, so that he is famous for what he is doing to this family, because not only is he stealing this home, not only is he denying this home to this elderly couple who actually paid for it, but he's filing every single dirty trick, the ones from the video and even beyond that video, as a way to delay this proceedings and hang on to this home for as long as possible. And again, all of the costs for this are on the family, not on the squatter, and the squatter is able to get all this different representation for this situation. And I cannot help but relate to this. I cannot help but sympathize for these family members, not as a homeowner, but as somebody who knows what it's like to deal with and manage somebody who can't take care of themselves, who is an adult. And it's all being done so that this piece of garbage can steal a property and, by the way, rent it out for a profit.
Finally, the owner decided it would be cheaper to just give me a chunk of cash to leave rather than continue paying the lawyer. So she writes me a check for $10K and I move out.
Meanwhile, they've been paying all the bills,
Leaving windows wide open 24 hours.
including thousands of dollars in utilities.
It makes me feel completely forgotten in the legal system, not able to do anything.
And again, to make matters worse, this guy is leaving all the windows open, running the heat, running the air conditioner at the same time. And I'm telling you, as somebody who lives in the city of New York, who lives in, by the way, a poorly insulated apartment myself that is expensive in terms of utilities, it is nowhere near that level. That is over 10x what I pay for heat and electricity in the dead of winter, and I have heat, electricity, and gas all in the same bill, and I got new space because of this freaking large place because I wanted to cover this studio. So it's not as big, obviously, as that house, but again, I'm not leaving all the windows open and creating all these problems like this guy is doing intentionally. $2,400? That's insane. That's asinine. That's ridiculous. And supposedly, if this guy, by the way, is claiming that he has the right to stay there, wouldn't it make sense that he would cover those utilities? But of course, that makes too too much sense. So the city of New York is not going to allow that. And to make matters worse, if they were to stop paying this, he could then sue them for being bad landlords, even though, again, they're not his landlords. They have no agreement with him, and he is not paying any rent.
As for Flores, no one answered the door. He did answer the phone.
I'm doing my best to try to get your side of the story, so you're telling me to call your attorney?
An attorney who told me
You're going to settle it through the court system.
no comment.
So yeah, right there, this guy who declared bankruptcy, who says he has no money, has an attorney. That's provided by the city of New York.
Of course, I can't afford a lawyer, so I call up a tenant advocacy group who gives me a lawyer that's 100% free and funded by taxpayers. So my out-of-pocket is still $0.
They're working on a settlement related to this case, and that settlement will be this family paying even more money. Again, go back to that Portland parody video and realize that that is reality right here. So yeah, we need to do whatever we can. Blast this video across wherever you could see it. I'm going to send it to other people to hopefully get coverage for it, because this is just madness on top of madness. But hey, you know what? Those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on my social media. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a savage, horrible criminal stealing a property from an elderly couple and adult child with autism. Till next time.